Sabrina and welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited to have you here and I'm very excited to be here and today we're going to be talking about my 1-star reads of 2021. Now it's always disappointing to have 1-star reads or books you didn't really enjoy or even books that you really anticipated to be good and then they turned out to be not very good or not up to your expectations. So I'm just going to talk about some books that were kind of on my radar and things that books that I thought were going to be good and they ended up being terrible or I just really didn't like them. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Now, as usual, some of these books will be on the screen as a picture since I did read them as an ebook or an audiobook, and then the other ones I do have a physical copy, so I'll show the physical copy. The first book I was very disappointed by in 2021 was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I finally read it and I really wanted to love this book. Every booktuber that I've ever watched personally has just really enjoyed it. They've talked about how amazing it is, and just for me, it lacked that enthusiasm that everybody had for it. Everybody said it was very magical, very mystical, very just question everything kind of feel, and for me it just lacked a lot of that. I think it may have been because I did listen to it as an audiobook and it was when I was starting to go into my anxious state, so I really wasn't listening to it, so I would have to rewind a lot and re-listen, or I would be driving home from work from a double and I kind of just like half listened to it. So I'm hoping that I could revisit it as an actual physical copy and change how I feel about it, but of course that will all depend. I'm not very sure how I will feel about it, but I'm hoping that I'll like it more if I visit it as a physical copy instead. But I did end up only rating it 2.5 stars because of those reasons said above. I thought it was very, very disappointing, hard to follow. Some of the things just didn't add up in my mind, but I know this is such a well-loved series and I would never try to bash it, so I think I'm going to actually try to revisit it as a physical copy and just see how I feel about it then. And the next book I do have as a physical copy, but I cannot find it. I don't know where it is, and that would be The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West. So this book follows a girl who gets dumped by her boyfriend the day of prom and nobody has ever met him before, so all her friends think she's lying about him, which is like, what terrible friends. And then she ends up finding this boy in the parking lot that is his sister is new to the school and he goes to a different school, and she asks him to be fill-in as her boyfriend, so she lies to all her friends. And honestly, this was my first Casey West novel and I have a really good booktube friend who loves Casey West, talks about how amazing she is, how much her romance has grown, how good her romance is, and honestly I felt like this book was just very toxic. Definitely had a lot of toxic friend energy, which I do not like in books simply because I feel like it teaches girls that being a toxic friend is good, and obviously that's not what I'm doing. So I didn't like that aspect, and I also didn't like the whole lying, and then, you know, midway through she's like, oh my god, I didn't know people would be mad that I lied. Ma'am. Yeah, overall I just thought the book was very predictable. It was very boring and I really just didn't like those touch and go topics of being toxic and of lying to your friends, so that really bothered me, but what can a girl do, right? The next book I was highly disappointed in was The Worlds of Ink and Shadow by Lena Coakley. So this book is about the Bronte sisters. I can never get just their last name out, and it just kind of follows them, and basically they are like have these powers where when they write a book, I believe it's just writing, it may be reading too, they can actually go into these stories and kind of live a different life. This aspect sounded so great. I really loved how they could go into these novels or they could write about them and kind of live in this world and kind of do it that way, and I really loved how they could enter the story, and when they were in the story, their pencils would continue to write the story on the paper in reality, and very cool concept, very interesting concept, but I just feel like it wasn't executed very well. It was very boring and jumped around a lot. At times you were like, hold on, who is this person? Hold on, what just happened? And you would have to read a chapter back because you don't understand what happened, and just a lot of things aren't aligned properly, and overall it was very confusing of a read. I did end up only giving it 2 stars because of that. I think the premise, amazing. The idea, very amazing, but just the execution just didn't go very well, and I just didn't like it. The next book I have is There Is Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. So I was so excited for this book. I was like, oh my god, serial killer on the loose, high schoolers, yes. It sounded so good. As you guys know, I love watching ID Discovery Channel. I love those documentaries, psychological films. I love them. So I was like, okay, everyone's saying this is a psychological thriller. Amazing. Love that for me. I heard so many people say it was so good, but overall I was very disappointed, and I just feel like hopping around to each person was really confusing at times. Like, it was nice to see the you know, the view of someone that was going to be murdered by this person, but then as soon as something interesting was about to happen, it just hopped to the next person, and then we never really found out. Or it'll stop mid-thought on a chapter and then go to the next person, and you're like, what is going on? What is happening? What? So I just didn't like it because of that aspect, because I just felt very confused the whole time. It jumped around a lot, and I don't really enjoy books that jump around like that, but I did like the story. I liked how it was very slow building for the most part. I believe we find out who, my cover's on upside down. I think we find out who the murderer was about 3/4 of the way through, so there was still a big section of the book where we knew, and it was just kind of like, oh, we have to catch this guy. My cat wants in. BRB. But yeah, overall, just kind of disappointed in it. Made me very upset because I was very excited to read this book. Okay, the next one I was very disappointed in was Love Letters to the Dead by Ava Delaney. I hope I'm saying that correctly. This book is basically just composed of a bunch of letters to people that have passed away, famous and not, and this girl kind of talking about her life. So it's like her diary, but in letter form to other people. I thought the premise was really cool because I myself do idolize people that have passed away. Dorcas does not know what she wants to do. Anyway, people who have been here for a long time know I have the Beatles tattooed on my arm. I really love the Beatles and stuff like that. So it is really cool to see people who do like the people who have passed away and like idolize people like that. But I feel like this book wasn't executed as well as it could have been. There were spots that were a little spotty, and like she contradicted herself a lot, which made it a little confusing, and you kind of hated the author of the letters because of that. Dorcas wants to join the video, but because of that I couldn't like it, and it was very disappointing. Say hi. This is Dorky, my kitty. Okay. The next book I was very disappointed by was The Cousins by Karen M. McMahon. So I don't know, this book for me was just very disappointing. I was really interested to learn about it. I was like, oh, cousins who have never met each other on an island with a grandma they've never met? What? And it sounded so interesting, like it was gonna be this like crazy, like, oh my god, my grandma murdered everybody on this island kind of deal, but it wasn't. And I don't know, I just feel like the secret that they said happened, like, I don't know, it just was a very big letdown for me. Like, it wasn't as interesting and as like surprising as I expected it to be. So I don't know, it was just really disappointing. Story was great, it just like dwindled very quickly. The next book on my list is The Memory Thief by Lauren Mancy. So this book, same thing, had a very good premise. It is about a girl who grows up in this place where memories are bought and sold. So basically, if you're super poor and you want a memory of having a rich vacation, you can actually go to auction and buy it. And the people whose memories are sold are prisoners, kind of people who like are ashamed to society or have done some criminal activity. And this girl is on the hunt to find her mother because her mother is at an insane asylum because of a mental illness, and she is out to get her mother before her memories can be sold. Overall, exactly, premise, amazing. I didn't like the ending. I feel like the theme with these books is the last like 100 pages. It's like, where'd the story go? Did you give up? You know how you guys read the book sometimes and you get to the end and you can just sense the author was like, okay, publisher wants me to finish this, I need to finish it now. That's how I felt about this book. I feel like it could have been very good. It could have had an amazing premise. It could have been very interesting, but it just was not executed that way, and it was very depressing. The next book is Allegedly by Tiffany Jackson. This book follows a girl who is in a group home because she committed a murder. So she was in juvenile detention and she got out, and she is now in a group home living. And she did murder an infant. So she's just kind of going through the roles of living here with these other women who have been in juvenile detention and kind of working their way through the system to get back out in society. Now, I did like this book. The ending was very surprising. I didn't like the ending personally, but I'm not going to tell you the ending because I don't want to ruin it for you if you decide to read it. But it was just one of those books that you were like, okay, we're building to it, and then it was a letdown, and that was very upsetting. If you guys watched my previous video, or maybe next week's video, I can't remember where it's going up, but I was talking about Cure for the Common Universe. Same thing there. The ending was a very big letdown. Overall, I really did enjoy the premise of like this woman going into juvenile detention and working the steps. I did like that aspect just because I am going into a social service field, so it is interesting to learn about that. But like I said, it was just kind of disappointing all around, and I wish it would have been a little more in depth and a little more interesting and just not have ended the way it did. And the next book is The Project by Courtney Summers, and this was such an anticipated release for this year, and I personally was very excited for it because I love culty books. I love culty pretty much anything, and like Family Upstairs got me going because of the culty themes, but the culty themes just it was really good the first half, and then the second half it just slowly went downhill. I felt like it was just kind of dwindling, like the ideas were gone, and it just got very boring very quickly, and it was really disappointing because I did like the content and what was going on. It just started getting like, okay, this needs to be a certain amount of pages, I need to finish this like ASAP. And the very next last book I have is Questions I Want to Ask You by Michelle Falkoff. I didn't even finish this book because it was so boring. That was mean. Sorry, Michelle. I didn't like it. Alright, that is going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed being here with me. If you like this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it to get notified every single time I upload. And without further ado, me and Dorcas, who's sitting in my computer chair, we'll see you next time.